Hey guys, my name is Joanna, also known as Just Another Flutist here on YouTube, and today we are doing a Flute Center of New York review. So for those of you who don't know, I have partnered up with the Flute Center of New York to bring you guys monthly flute review videos. This month we're going to be looking at the Burkart Resona 150 and 300. Now for those of you who have been around and know how these reviews work, please skip on ahead to when the review actually starts. But for those of you who are new around here, I have a code that you guys can use. It is this JAF. So with this code you can get free domestic shipping within the US when you order a flute through the Flute Center of New York using this code. But if you take the flutes out on trial, you will be charged up front for the shipping, but then it'll be refunded back to you once you ship the flutes back. You get an extended 10-day trial, usually it's only 7 days. You get an extended 18-month warranty on your new flute, and you can take up to 3 instruments out on trial at a time. Just be certain that you're actually in the market to buy before you take flutes out on trial, or else it's not fair to anyone. The Flute Center of New York also price matches any other authorized dealer, so you'll always know you're getting the best bang for your buck. Just to be completely transparent, I do earn a small commission on each flute that is purchased through the Flute Center of New York using this code. Girls gotta make a living somehow. Now about trials, all you have to do is contact the Flute Center of New York via email, phone. I'll put a link to their contact info in the bottom bar below. Make sure you give them my code and then they will be able to take care of things for you from there. And now about actually trying the flutes, make sure you take off all rings and dangly jewelry that can potentially scratch the flute. Never use the polishing cloth, the swabbing cloth, or the cleaning rod that comes with each new flute because they are not yours yet. And last but not least, a little disclaimer: every flutist plays each flute differently. Like in Harry Potter, just as the wand chooses the wizard, so the flute chooses the flutist. My job here is just to describe to you, to the best of my ability, how these flutes like to be played. But it is up to you to decide for yourself what works for you. Every flute is different and every flutist is different. With all that said and done, let's jump right into the review. So we are looking at the Burkart Resona 150 and 300. So I went online to kind of read more about why were they made, and I found out that they're actually inspired by how they made the Burkart Resona Piccolo. I did actually make a review on the Resona Piccolo, which I'll link up here for you guys to check out. The idea behind that piccolo was they wanted to create an instrument that still had like the professional qualities of a typical Burkart professional piccolo, but made at an affordable price. So that Burkart Resona Piccolo used to be called Global. That's the first name that it was launched as in like 2004, but then it was renamed the Burkart Resona in 2010, but it's the same piccolo. From that, Burkart started to develop the Resona flute, the same thing that they did for the piccolo. They wanted to do it on the flute. So the idea was, let's keep the same Burkart professional body and head joint, but let's put silver plated keys on. That flute actually became the second flute that we're going to review for today, the Resona 300. The Resona 300 became really popular for professionals to actually buy as a backup flute. We have backup flutes because you never know what's going to happen to your instrument. There is an accident with your instrument and it has to go into the repair shop, maybe right before a really important concert, gig, audition, etc. You can't be caught without your instrument. Now for my first impressions. Most other open hole flutes, I find the holes themselves are more rounded off, but on the 150 and the 300 here, it's more of a sharp edge. It's actually easier to feel against your fingers. One of the biggest issues that you have as a teacher teaching students who are new to an open hole flute is to get them to feel when their fingers are slipping off of the keys. But for these Resonas, you can really feel the edge of the hole against your fingers, and you can really feel when you've slipped off of them. This is a great introduction to open hole flutes. All right, and now for the packaging of these flutes. So these flutes come in very interesting cases. They look like they come in your typical French model type case where you have like an inner case and then there's an outer case that's made from like some sort of woven material, but it doesn't open like your typical French model case where it, you know, like it opens lengthwise. it actually opens just on one end. So the whole case is like a tube. At first, I thought this was very inconvenient because it's like, oh man, I have to slide the entire case out, put it on top of the cover, and then open it. Upon further inspection, I now know why they did it that way. It's so that they can utilize this very interesting shoulder strap they've got going on. The shoulder strap can be used in two ways. The first way is like your typical way. You have it on like the two ends of the flute, and then, you know, you just kind of like shoulder it like that. You can actually adjust the strap so that you end up holding the flute vertically. I realized that I can just fit it right into my armpit. It keeps in mind that you may have tons of other bags with you that you're holding, and so it allows you to kind of like adjust the straps to however you need to hold the flute. But other than that, everything else is like pretty typical. You know, you've got your embroidered logo on the top, real cute. The strap itself is reinforced really well in 3 different places. And inside the cover, you will find the certificate of authenticity and basically quality control. Essentially, it's been signed off by Silver Burkart. And then you have your cleaning cloth, your polishing cloth, and your cleaning rod. Now let's get to playing around with these flutes. We're going to start with the Resona 150. So I should read out the specs to you guys. 0.925 sterling silver Resona by Burkart Headjoint with 14 karat gold riser. Silver plated body with silver plated mechanism. Drawn tone holes. French open hole model. Pointed key arms. Gold springs. Burkart scale. Modern Resona pads. Offset G. Split E mechanism. C sharp trill. B foot joint with gizmo. So essentially what you have here is a solid silver head with silver plated body. Let's get to actually noodling around on this. Here we are again with my lovely diagram. We are looking at the cross section of your mouth. These are your lips. These are your teeth. This is your tongue. And this area here is the roof of your mouth. None of this is anatomically correct, but this is just how I imagine my mouth. For this flute, I find that I am imagining the shape of a ball right behind my teeth, and it's quite big. I also feel that I have to hollow out this area behind my bottom front teeth just to make sure I get the full resonance that I can get. When I am trying to play low, my airstream will come up like this, and then it will hit the ball in this direction, which causes the ball to roll this way, sort of like an underhanded rolling. The higher I want to play, the more my airstream hits the lower end of the ball, which again makes the ball roll like underhanded. So this causes your airstream to come out in different angles. So if we go back to what we're doing for the low notes, you hit it up here, and then the ball will roll this way, and then your air will kind of come out like this at a lower angle. For the higher notes, your airstream hits right there, which causes the ball to roll this way, which causes your airstream to go upwards like that. You're primarily only using the front like 1/3 of your mouth. If you have a smaller mouth, which most young students have smaller mouths than adults, this will allow the student to be able to play with a lot more control and a lot more power than if they were on a flute that requires them to use more of the back end of their mouth. You can grow into those flutes, which may be one of the reasons why sometimes you might find that eventually you start to fight your flute as you grow out of it. Also, I do know that there are people who just tend to naturally push the air starting from the front of their mouth. So if that's the case for you, this would work really, really nicely. The way this whole thing works is pretty intuitive. I would say the only counterintuitive thing is that the lower you want to play, the more you have to hit the ball on like a higher point. And the higher you want to play, the more you have to hit it at a lower point. You know, if you're a teacher and you're teaching a student on a Resona 150, you may want to check if they are accidentally flipping this. Now let's play with harmonics. harmonic and below, everything is great. It's the 7th harmonic, like the really, really high one, I can hardly get out of this flute. You almost feel like this ball is like weighted down and you have to like lift it a bit. But if you lift it too much, you'll lose the sound altogether, won't come out. It is absolutely possible to get that 7th harmonic out. I'm going to guess there may be something in my own mouth that is blocking that from happening. And now for tone color. The richer you want it to be, the bigger and like wider. You want to hollow out the area behind your teeth, both the top and the bottom, as much as you can. Just give it a lot of room to reverberate. But let's say you want to create a hollower sound. I find that this ball shrinks a little bit, not too much, and it moves to like the middle of your mouth, riding against the roof of your mouth. This is also pretty easy to do, and it's also pretty easy to visualize and describe. And this would be very easy to teach your students. And now for dynamics. What's great about this flute is that it's a lot easier to maintain a certain tone color with different dynamics. If you want that rich tone, you know, you have this large ball that we have here. You pour the air out as you normally would for a forte. But if you want to make a piano, you make this ball smaller. I imagine it about this small, and you notice that I've put it in the top half of my mouth. It does ride quite high, and you can keep it in the front of your mouth to keep that slightly richer tone. Let's say you were starting up here for more of like a mezzo forte-ish on a hollow tone. You would essentially just make that ball smaller. So it'd be like this. And again, you see how high it rides. If your ball is here, then you'll have a rich tone. If your ball is here, then you'll have a hollow tone. And then like the bigger ball you have, the louder it is. The smaller ball that you have, the softer it is. This is such a great way to introduce these slightly more complex concepts to students, but you're able to do it in a way that's very understandable and straightforward. Not all flutes are like this. And now for the mechanism. So all the keys have like a really good sort of medium light-ish resistance that tend to be really good for students, especially as a young student. You know, your hands are growing, your body is growing, things are kind of getting out of alignment every now and then. And when things get out of alignment, the first thing to go is the evenness in how you play. With a little bit of resistance on the flute can help kind of iron out some of those kinks so that the growing process is not so painful in the flute technique department. I like that all the keys have this, including all of the extra keys. So like C sharp trill, B flat lever, both C trill keys and the gizmo. None of them feel floppy. And the C trill keys, both of them, have a really nice bounce to them. So it's very easy for the students playing this to play with like really brilliant trills. And now for articulation. I find that my tongue ends up doing like a faux French tongue, which is basically your tongue goes between your teeth. Real French tonguing is when you tongue from between your lips. Faux French tonguing to me is when you do it just a little further back in your mouth between your teeth. If I'm not paying attention to it, it feels like it's actually riding against the top back edge of my bottom teeth right here. If I really pay attention to what my tongue is doing, it is actually doing a full faux French tongue where the top of my tongue does kind of graze my top teeth, but I mostly feel it here. Essentially, you have to just kind of go around your imaginary ball. Now, for double tonguing, remember how I said that there's this, and then if you do a hollow tone, your ball is like up here, right? When I do the K sound, it hits that space against my roof of my mouth that is between this larger ball of air and this slightly smaller hollow version. So your tongue will come up like this, as you can see, very far forward. This part is only like halfway through your mouth. It almost feels like cheating, but not quite. You still get to really kind of feel the K. And again, I am saying K. K will get you to move that K sound further forward in your mouth rather than saying K. All right, great. So now we're going to move on to the Resona 300. Let's look at the specs. 0.925 sterling silver Resona by Burkart Headjoint with 9-carat lip plate. Sterling silver body with silver plated mechanism. Drawn tone holes. French open hole model. Pointed key arms. Gold springs. 0.018 tubing. So heavy wall. Burkart scale, contemporary felt pads, offset G, split E mechanism, C-sharp trill key, B foot joint. That explains a lot, the heavy wall, because this thing is a powerhouse. Spoilers. Essentially what we're working with here is actually a solid silver flute. It's just the mechanism that's silver plated. Now let's get to noodling. Everything is the same except for the fact that you just move everything you did in the 150 further forward. So that large ball of air is now sitting around the teeth. And notice there is space in front of the teeth and behind the teeth. I almost feel like sound vibrations or airstream vibrations against my teeth. I also feel it vibrating like crazy against my lips. For younger or more developing students, this feeling might be a little much, but it is incredibly satisfying for a professional. Now for the harmonics. Same as the 150. But you just feel it way more. Everything has to be way more forward. Getting the 7th harmonic out is just as challenging for me as on the 150. So to me, this shows a really nice consistency between the two. All the other harmonics come out like a breeze. Now for tone color. I'm just gonna sound like a broken record. It feels the same as the 150, but just more forward. I will say that generally speaking, I find that the richer tone is naturally more filled out than the 150. You have to work a lot less hard to get that rich sound. Conversely, the hollow tone has more of like a natural shimmer. I do find that it seems to project more than on the 150. And now for dynamics. Broken record. Feels the same as the 150, just way more forward. The only thing I would say is that you can push a lot more. The range of dynamics is bigger. This section would be rich tone. This section here will be your hollow. And then you can just kind of fit the balls wherever you want. If you want it loud, make it super big and put it in the rich section. Or you can make it as big as it can fit into the hollow section and stick it in there. Or if you want it to be super soft, that's why this little ball ends up in front of your teeth. If you want it super soft and hollow, it ends up right there. And now for the mechanism. The mechanism itself feels exactly the same as the 150, but the flute itself is quite a bit heavier. You have a heavy wall. For me, because I have really small hands, I felt the balance was thrown off a little bit. So I actually had to kind of move the placement of my right thumb a little bit to make sure that I was actually balancing it correctly. That's actually what made the mechanism feel slightly different to me. But when I actually like compared the 150 and the 300, oh, consistency is there. You can really tell that these flutes have gone through inspection to make sure that the quality control is there. Everything down to the C sharp trill, B flat lever, the C trill keys, the gizmo, they feel exactly the same. And last but not least, articulation. This flute is more traditional in where you tongue for faux French tonguing. It feels like it's grazing the bottom back edge of my top front teeth, so like right at this point right here. There's just something about this that for some reason does not really obstruct that ball of air. I know it looks like it does, but when you actually do it, it doesn't. It's totally fine. Now for double tonguing on the 300, I do feel like I'm cheating. It's the same idea though. You know, like our hollow ball of air is there, right? So that means that I need to hit right here, which is even further forward than the 150. Now, because your tongue has to go up here for the K sound, you almost feel like you're not quite making it up there. You just have to imagine that you're using like the most outward 1/8 part of your tongue, like the tip of your tongue, to do this whole movement. You're probably already trying it now. It feels like cheating, right? It's almost like slow flutter tonguing. Now we have arrived at the part of the review where I reveal to you how much these actually cost. So we're gonna start with the 150. If you get the base model, it is $2,500. But if you want the split E mechanism, that's an additional $250. If you want a 14 karat gold riser, that's an additional $480. Or if you wanted a 9 karat lip plate with silver riser, that is an additional $625. And if you want the C sharp trill key, then you're looking at an additional $350. So the grand total for today's Resona 150 would be $3,580. For the Resona 300, the base price is $4,400. For the 300, you have the option of having an inline G key. There is no additional cost for that. But if you wanted the offset G with the split E mechanism, that is an additional $250. You have the same head joint options as on the 150. You can also add the C sharp trill key, which is an additional $350. So the grand total for today's Resona 300 is $5,625. So this would be perfect to get into music school with. Also, the Resona 300, I feel like it's actually targeted more towards a professional market because the price point is not quite that of like the higher end professional models. So you're not paying for literally another professional flute. Based on my own experience, I still use my intermediate flute as my backup flute. You guys can do the same for this flute. This can be the flute that you played at your intermediate level that you just take with you straight into your professional years. It will last you a very long time. They're made very, very well. That is my conclusion about these flutes. They're wonderful. Let us know in the comments below what you want me and the Flute Center of New York to review for you guys next. Not only do I read them, but the Flute Center of New York reads them as well. Make sure you follow the Flute Center of New York on their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I will put a link to the social media in the info bar below. If you want to support me, head on over to my Patreon. Otherwise, you can find me on my social media networks that I've also listed down below. If you like this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then hit the bell icon, which is actually the new subscribe button because subscriptions are kind of broken right now, to be notified of when I post next. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye. But for those of you who are new around, gosh, I keep hitting everything. Man, ice cream truck going by.